is all wrong. Young people are starting to understand the world is waking up and change is coming. Right here, right now is where we draw the line.
We the young, we the brave, we see the peril and the promise with 2020 vision. And right here, right now, we vow to organize and mobilize, to stand up and speak out, to find solutions from nature herself. Because there's no time to renegotiate. There's only time to regenerate, restore, and recreate. A systems failure means we need a systems change. And maybe you are the spark for that change. The UN is seeking the next wave of young champions of the Earth. If you're 18 to 30, if you're passionate, if you have big plans for people and planet, this is your chance. Right here, right now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Session 2 of Covestro's Think 30 Youthquake Summit. I'm Rebecca Lucor, and I'll be your host again for this and each of the 3 Youthquake sessions. In the first session, you met people who've built their work on sustainability issues like food, transportation, health, equity, all which have impact climate change. In this session, we'll be looking at radical transformations in the fight to combat climate change. The first is circular economics. It's a complete system change from the economic model we're all accustomed to. Then we'll introduce you to some real trailblazers who are creating new industries, jobs, and career opportunities for people committed to reversing climate change. But before I hand it over, a quick reminder that this is all leading up to Friday, November 5th, which is Youth and Education Day for COP26. Please take the opportunity on Friday to use the hashtags Think30 and COP26 to share your ideas and opinions with leaders and other young people all over the world. Also, please make sure to download our companion app, which has a lot of cool and interesting information on it. It's really simple. Just search the iTunes stores or Google Play Store for Identify and download the app free of charge. Once you launch Identify, it will prompt you to start a search for an event. Type in Think 30 Youthquake 2021, then select Join and follow the setup instructions. This is how we'll communicate with each other and how you can all stay connected throughout these sessions. Enjoy. Talk to you soon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Håkan Johnson, and I'm the chairman and president of Covestro LLC. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Today, I've been invited to talk about the circular economy. Now, some of you may have heard of the circular economy, but may not be sure exactly what it is. Others may be very familiar with it, and still others may know nothing about it. At the end of my session, I hope you will all have a better understanding of what the circular economy is and how it is a powerful tool in combating climate change. Traditionally, countries, communities, companies, organizations, and systems have operated using a linear economic model. That means we take natural resources from the earth to make products and then discard those products when we are finished using them. In linear economics, products are designed to be used and then thrown away when you're done with them. We know now that this approach is not sustainable for the planet. We know that we live in a world of tremendous innovation and endless possibilities, but also dwindling resources. Unchecked demand, production, and consumption is depleting those resources. It creates a lot of waste that is polluting the environment, and it's producing greenhouse gases that are warming the planet. One way to help solve this challenge is to replace the traditional linear economy, which takes, makes, and wastes, into a circular economy that is built on the principle of the R's: reuse, recycle, repair, refurbish, remanufacture. These R's create what we call a closed loop system that minimizes waste, pollution, and carbon emissions by keeping it all in the production cycle to be used as raw materials. Think of this closed loop as a circle, no beginning or end like you would find with a line. Instead, just the same materials being used over and over and over again. In circular economics, what was once considered to be waste can actually become the raw materials needed to create products. Plastics recycling is a good example of this. Right now, most plastics are recycled using a mechanical method, meaning plastics are crushed by machines into pellets, which are then melted and reformed to create new products. The problem is only a low percentage of all plastics are recycled today, partly due to a lack of collection and effective sorting of the plastics, partly due to a lack of advanced recycling methods. We are working to improve traditional mechanical recycling methods so that more plastics can be recycled and reused, but we're also creating something new called chemical recycling. Chemical recycling allows us to break plastics into the original molecules using chemistry. So scientists, chemists, and engineers can take those basic molecules and actually use them to build brand new materials. Certain industries hold the most promise for transformation to the circular economy, and plastics is one of them. So are fashion, food, electronics, and construction, as you'll hear about in just a bit. As one of the world's leading producers of advanced polymers and high-performance plastics, we at Covestro have a big responsibility in this work. The responsibility we take very seriously as we work to realize our vision, which is to transition our entire business to become fully circular. But it's not just us. It is not just industry and individual businesses. Countries, cities, communities, entire systems are looking at ways to become circular. In order to do so, all of these entities, the countries, cities, communities, and systems will need to work together. That's because circular economics requires a complete rethink, a fundamental shift in how we have all been operating for so many years. It is a huge challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity for new ideas and insights and innovations to help usher in a more sustainable future. It is also an opportunity that we must tackle together in the months and years ahead, as my generation steps aside to welcome in yours as the new change makers. Thank you.
Hi, Mike. Angela Wizzle from Covestro. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Everyone, this is Mike Gable, Executive Director of Construction Junction in Pittsburgh, an organization which he founded in 1999. And today he's going to tell us a little bit about his organization, and he's going to give us a walkthrough as well. So Mike, can you tell everyone a little bit about Construction Junction, why you founded it, and what the journey has been like for the past 20 plus years?
Okay, that's a big question. It spans a big amount of time. So I am the founding director. Construction Junction was not originally my idea. It was the idea of 3 different organizations, all of them focused on green building, conservation, kind of, and this organization was launched because there really wasn't any good way to address the large amount of building material waste that is generated in the Pittsburgh economy. In the United States, construction waste is a 600 million ton issue, so it's a tremendous amount of waste. And we felt like there wasn't a good way to address the construction waste issue in Pittsburgh. So when Construction Junction was launched, that was the reason to address that issue. So our mission statement is actually to promote conservation through the reuse of building material. And I think what's compelling about that is that I think a lot of times people don't connect resource conservation, resource consumption sort of directly with building materials. How's that? How is this a, how is this a conservation issue? Well, since 1970, our use of resources has tripled on the planet. And we're projected, that number in the next 20 years is projected to double, to the extent that people are now projecting that we need another half of an Earth to meet our resource demand just to keep up with the growth of construction and mineral mining and our tech economy. So we really need to be thinking about how do we reuse materials in the construction and building sector.
Can you, so to add to that, can you tell us a little bit more about how Construction Junction fits into the whole circular movement going on today?
So I think what's really exciting about the concept of circular economy is that it actually puts reuse at the center. Our current economy, consumption is at the center. And reuse actually gives you an environmentally responsible way to consume. So the circular economy actually creates a larger framework for us to talk about why do we need organizations like Construction Junction? Why do we need to develop infrastructure where we can capture all of this material and make it available to the public to use? And circular economy, I think, actually raises the bar, raises the level on what we do. I think most people look at reuse as kind of a, sort of a small scale, one-off kind of thing. It's very much part of the informal economy. I can go on Craigslist and buy used materials and
Facebook Marketplace.
Right, Facebook Marketplace. I mean, those are all important things for individuals, but we need to be thinking much larger about how we incorporate used building materials at scale into larger projects, how we keep track of this material, how we market this material to architects, builders, designers. So circular economy gives us the language and the platform to elevate this activity.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And we're so excited to share this wonderful space with our viewers and all of our students watching. Can you lead the way and sort of give us a glimpse into the world at Construction Junction?
Sure. Let's so just what you see around the materials that you see here. So right now, this is our receiving area. So we acquire material in 3 different ways. Individuals can drop off materials to us. We send trucks out to construction sites, to wholesalers and retailers who might be getting rid of inventory. And instead of throwing that inventory away, we give them a convenient and easy way to keep that material out of the landfill, and we're able through our retail space to keep that material circulating. And then we also have a deconstruction operation that goes out and actually takes buildings apart, takes materials out of buildings before demolition.
So everyone, this space is so huge and we're trying to capture every aspect of it in a limited amount of time. So we're going to ask Mike right now another question about the deconstruction industry and what are some of the opportunities that you foresee in the future, as well as can you tell us, I'll quickly add this in, can you tell us why the deconstruction industry is seen as industry of the future, especially within the aspect of climate change? I know this is another loaded one.
Yeah, that's another loaded one. All right, so let's talk about some of the job opportunities first. The basic one is it's a good place for people who don't know much about building and renovating to learn those basic construction skills, right? Because if you know how to take something apart, you will get a perspective on how you might put that together. So the remodeling industry, the construction industry, Lots of job opportunities, good place to learn. Deconstruction is a good place to learn those basic skills. For people who are policy wonk types, are interested in policy. So right now there are probably 5 or 6 different municipalities across the country that have either implemented deconstruction ordinances for residential houses or are contemplating, like Pittsburgh passed an executive order where the mayor is instructing the city to come up with a deconstruction policy that will first be applied to how the city takes down buildings that it pays to demolish, in this case deconstruct, and then think about how might that be applied to the private sector. So there's a rich opportunity to develop policy around deconstruction.
And as we wrap up, Mike, I love, everything that you're explaining. As we wrap up, final words for high school students watching us right now, or things that you may want them to think about.
I don't want to sound cliched and say and put all the pressure on you, because we have a lot as the older generation, we have a lot of things to try to set right, and you need to hold our feet to the fire. You need to say, look, there's all these great ideas out there. Let's act on them. Let's do more deconstruction. Let's do more reuse. When you see projects happening and you drive by and see a dumpster that has a lot of used materials in it, you need to be thinking, well, what do we need to put in place from an education perspective, from a policy perspective, to keep that from happening? So not only do you need to hold our feet to the fire to make sure we're doing everything we can as we transition into a more circular economy, you need to come behind us and do better than we've done.
Love it, love it. Couldn't say it any better. Thank you so much for enlightening us today, Mike,
Sure.
and thank you for taking the time.
Sure.
Hi everyone, I'm Cheyenne Schenkel with Covestro. Welcome to our panel discussion looking at climate jobs of the very near future. Mitigating climate change is sparking whole new industries and job opportunities within those industries. Today, we have 2 experts from 2 of those industries. The first industry is indoor agriculture, also known as controlled environment agriculture or vertical farming, and the other is carbon capture. We are so pleased to have with us Mr. Jim Pantaleo, a pioneer in indoor vertical farming for food production in Southern California, who today serves as the Business Development Coordinator for the Artificial Intelligence Institute for Next Generation Food Systems at the University of California's Davis campus. And Noah Deitch, co-founder and president of Carbon 180, a nonprofit whose mission is to fundamentally rethink carbon, how it's captured, how it's stored, and how it's used, with the ultimate goal of building a world that removes more carbon than it emits. All right, let's jump right into the discussion. So first question is for you, Jim. Can you tell us about indoor agriculture or controlled environment agriculture? In the next 10 years or so, is it really going to have a big impact on how we grow food?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Cheyenne. So when we talk about indoor vertical farming or controlled environment agriculture, it includes things like growing in warehouses or containers, only using LED lights to create photosynthesis or to grow those plants. When we talk about controlled environment ag, it includes indoor farming, but it also includes greenhouse growing, and that brings in ambient sunlight. But the key with indoor vertical farming is building where people are, building those farms where people are, so you can do a lot of different things in terms of cutting down on food miles. The average tomato in the United States travels 800 miles from farm to fork. The average head of lettuce travels 1,500 miles from farm to fork. So we need to address those problems. And there's a lot more to this, and I hope I could share more throughout this interview. But that's really the key thing, is building these farms where people live. And as we know today, well, actually, within the next 15 to 25 years, we're going to have upwards of 80% of all people living in major metropolitan areas. So it's really important to have food grown where people live.
Those are some really interesting statistics.
Yes.
So Noah, moving on to carbon capture for a second, what does it mean to capture carbon, and what are the benefits of capturing it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And carbon capture is actually a very wide umbrella of different approaches. Plants naturally capture carbon, and so we can actually harness our existing agriculture and forestry sectors to not just grow food and fiber, but to start removing some of the carbon that we've left in the atmosphere as a legacy of fossil fuel use over the past century. We can also kind of turn that fossil fuel infrastructure on its head. And instead of pulling hydrocarbons out of the ground, burning them, and emitting that carbon pollution as waste, we can develop carbon capture technologies, basically use clever chemical engineering to pull CO2 right back from the atmosphere or from the smokestack of a polluting facility, and then either transform it into building materials, other consumer goods, or just bury it underground back where it came from.
Thanks for explaining that further. Jim, back to you. Why is indoor ag a more sustainable way to farm than the traditional way? How does indoor agriculture help address the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and what kind of impact does it have or can it have?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cheyenne. Really, the key thing with indoor vertical farming is about space, saving space, and resources. So when we talk about a lot of these systems, a lot of these new indoor vertical farms, at least in our country, you talk about closed loop systems. So you talk about no runoff. So we know that in regular outdoor farming, you have a lot of runoff of water. And in that water sometimes can be pesticides and fungicides and herbicides. None of that is used. So we don't have any of those inputs because we don't have any pests indoors. So when we talk about space saving, we also talk about stacking the produce. So think about Costco. I'll drop a name. So Aero Farms is one of our nation's largest indoor vertical farms, AERO farms. And they grow like a Costco style structure, 25, 30 feet in the air. So we talk about space savings, we talk about water savings, we talk about zero use of pesticides, which clearly has an effect on our environment, as well as a whole bunch of other pretty important things, as I referred to earlier with food miles. But those are really some of the key critical elements of why indoor farming can be more sustainable to outdoor farming.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Going back to you, Noah, how can carbon be reused? How will this impact other industries' work in becoming more sustainable or even fully circular?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we think about utilizing carbon, I think it most often comes up in the context of what do we do with the CO2 pollution that either comes off of a smokestack or is already in the atmosphere from that past industrial activity. The magic is that with clean electricity, clean hydrogen, we can take that CO2 and transform it into all the chemical building blocks that we use today to make plastics. We can make fuels. We can even use CO2 to directly create novel building materials like carbon fiber, or reimagine how we build with cement and concrete products that are reinforced with CO2. And so the idea here is that if we can make products with CO2 more cost effectively or with a better profile, user experience, strength, durability, whatever customers are looking for, then we might be able to stop using the fossil derived alternative and start using the carbon that's floating freely in the air above our heads. And that can really revolutionize how we make products can change where we make them. It can change the geopolitics around what feedstocks we use. And it really revolutionizes how we think about climate change. When I think of climate change, I think of how do we switch to renewable energy and how do we stop using fossil fuels. But this is a way to expand the aperture of what climate solutions can look like and ultimately be a stepping stone to how do we clean up the trillions of tons of CO2 that we've put in the atmosphere in the past few decades alone, and likely will continue to put in the atmosphere until we're able to achieve net zero emissions globally. So I think it's a really exciting entry point for a lot of folks wanting to have a near-term impact on climate.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So now we're going to talk a little bit about careers in both of your fields. So Jim, back to you. What do jobs look like in this industry, and how is it different from being a traditional farmer?
So this is really the most exciting part, I think, about this discussion today, because I know I'm speaking to Youthquakers, and so there's a lot of younger people out there than me. So, you know, you guys, you can see I've been around for a very long time. I knew this question was coming, so I wanted to kind of give you all some real world sort of vibrations and reality on these jobs. So when we talk about indoor vertical farming, we're really talking about disciplines that most everybody that's watching right now understands. So whether it's computer science, whether it's biology, whether it's engineering, whether it's cool things like I'm involved with right now, like AI and sensor technology. But let me give you a really quick rundown of some of the jobs that are available just from one indoor farm that I actually happened to look up on their career site today. So we'll just bang down the list here really quickly. Graphic design, engineering technology, mechanical engineers, financial analysts, food safety, legal, logistics, horticulture, grower, R&D, sales. So you pick it, guys, whatever you want, it's there. This is not your grandfather's farm. We need you. This industry needs so many young people with so many talents. So please, I hope if I say anything today, it's about those kinds of opportunities, those kinds of disciplines. You don't need to be a certain kind of person. You can do whatever passion you have and put it into this, because ultimately you're growing food, you're helping the world, and you're making good things happen. So isn't that what we all really want to do?
Yeah, that's awesome that, you know, you can kind of pick your path and still be able to find your way back to vertical farming if you want to.
You know,
that's really exciting.
You know,
so Noah, what do jobs look like in your industry right now, and what will they look like in the future?
Yeah, I mean, you can basically sub out what Jim said, replace farming with a handful of other industries, whether it's manufacturing or energy production, even farming and forestry today. There's a wealth of jobs out there. I think the key thing is that we need more people who are passionate about taking carbon out of the atmosphere, putting it away. That wherever you end up, whether it's in business, government, civil society, we just need more human capital and more leadership. That this is not something that's going to happen by itself. It happens one person at a time. And it's having people understand how to change existing systems, how to go work in big companies and help them do something different incrementally, how to start new companies, and how to scale those companies. And that's one of the most exciting things I've seen, is that there are no boundaries when it comes to carbon removal today, that you can have an impact whether you're an English major or PhD in physics, that there are opportunities to do it all. So I think what matters is the first step, and taking that and jumping right in is where to go.
Mm-hmm. So Jim, we kind of already went over what kind of subjects students should study if they're interested in working and shaping the future of food systems. So beyond that, do you have any other advice or that you could give to students that are interested in getting into this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was involved in technology for over 20 years, and about 7 years ago, I made a complete total change. And what I did, and this was this is my advice, is that I had to get literate. And so if you can get literate in this industry, in my particular industry or in Noah's industry, that's really important because it enables you to have discussions with people. And then of course, just start. Do whatever you can. And in fact, what I did before I ever got a paying job is I offered myself up for some internships. In fact, if this is coming from Scotland and Glasgow, one of my very first internships was with a indoor vertical farm company in St. Andrews on the campus of the James Hutton Institute called Intelligent Growth Solutions. Shout out to IGS. They gave me one of my first pro bono or free internships. I did a little marketing survey for them. It took me about a month. It was free, but I would recommend those kinds of things. Get literate, think about doing internships, and just jump right in and go for it. But don't do it if you don't have any passion for it. You got to be passionate, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And then Noah, kind of same question I asked Jim. What advice would you have for students, or what do you recommend that they look into if they're interested in pursuing careers to advance the carbon capture industry?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I have is to don't trust everything old guys like me and Jim are saying. We're the reason we're in this mess when it comes to climate change, right? So we need the next generation to figure out how to get us out and to have some real breakthrough thinking. And I think too often there's a tendency to kind of take at face value some of the constraints that people who've been working on this problem for decades just assume as normal. But what I see every day is new people coming in and breaking those. And that's what we need. We need people to come in and think big and change the world.
Definitely.
Yeah, those are great challenges and opportunities for all the students watching today and starting to develop their careers. So thank you, Jim and Noah, both for being with me today. It was awesome talking to you, and I hope that the students were a little bit inspired by hearing both of you talk.
Thanks, Cheyenne.
Thanks, Cheyenne.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Mar. I am from Dallas, Texas. I am a part of the Climate Reality Project in the Dallas Fort Worth chapter. So I first got into climate activism in 2017 during Hurricane Harvey. During Hurricane Harvey, what I saw was it was mostly people of color, poor people, and other ethnic minorities suffering from climate change. What I saw in the shelter, it was people losing their home, carrying whatever they can save from their home and went into the shelter. So that's what the moment I realized the climate crisis is not just a scientific issue. It is a human right crisis. So in 2017, I joined the Climate Reality Project. I attend their educational training. So basically the Climate Reality Project, we held different trainings throughout the years, but these are educational training that helps you better understand what's going on with the climate science, what's going on with the climate crisis, and how we can actually gather everybody's superpower in climate activism. Because the truth is that climate crisis affects every aspect of our lives. The food we eat, our weather, right? The way we travel, flying or driving, right? If we want to go hiking in beautiful nature in 10 years or 20 years. And also it includes everything we use in our lives, right? So it really touched on every single aspect of our lives. And one prime example is that, do we want to always suffer from air pollution and asthma? Or do we want to live in a world that has shiny solar panels on our roofs? So really, this is not a question whether I fit into the movement. This is a question that I know I fit into this movement and how I can really contribute. And so for me, I've been teaching in higher education for more than 10 years. And a lot of the times, according to my own understanding and how I contribute to this movement is that, how do I motivate people? How do I organize people? How do I get people to show up? And each one of us has different superpower. You can attend the Climate Reality project training, but you can also do your own research and then organize people around you, your friends, your classmates, your teachers, your families, right? Your neighborhoods, and then find something that you want to do together, right? Recycling, or limit the waste that we're producing, or, consume whatever we can consume and don't overbuy at stores and things like this. Really, if each one of us do our part and push in the movement, we can actually have a sustainable future in 10 years, 20 years, and for your future and for our future as well. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Wow, another session with amazing speakers and ideas and action. And that's where all of you come in. Thank you to Håkan and Jim and Noah and Leah for everything you're doing to create new economic and advocacy models. And Mike, how cool is Construction Junction? It's incredible to think about these new industries and careers, but it's also incredible to think about all the industries and careers that still have not been created, but will be by the time all of you enter the workforce. Thanks to all of our speakers, and thank you for joining us. And for session 3, we'll be live on campus, so tune in to find out where. Till next time.